Hey, guess what? It's time to cook. We're getting ready for the weekends from now on with Farms Friday Food File Podcast. So, it's your contrarian agrarian, Sue Belcom.
And Annie Carlson.
And we're going to talk to you every Friday, or maybe more often than that, about one of our favorite recipes, making it simple enough for anyone to try. This week,
we are talking homemade chocolate cake.
I love chocolate cake, but what's the big deal about this chocolate cake?
This chocolate cake is my mom's chocolate cake recipe, and it is fabulous. Moist, chocolatey, and delicious.
I always heard that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, and my mom always recommended chocolate cake. So where's the recipe?
The recipe can always be found on our show notes for this podcast episode, and that's located at our website, farmsnews.com.
Well, so Annie, take us through making some homemade chocolate cake, because my mouth's already watering.
Well, so many people think that cake comes from a box. So when you say,
What?
I'm going to make...
It doesn't?
I'm going to make a homemade chocolate cake, and people will say, well, what kind did you use? Betty Crocker or Duncan Hines, and I use Sharon White. So my mom has a wonderful homemade chocolate cake recipe. And like we said, all the ingredients are found in the show notes, so you don't need to scribble down now what we're going to talk about. But the ingredients are everything that you can have in your pantry. So some unexpected company calls and says, hey, can we come over for the evening? You can quickly whip up a chocolate cake. And I dare say you could probably make this chocolate cake just as fast as a box mix cake.
And no doubt it will be way more delicious. I can remember one time going on a tour and having somebody tell me that we were going to stop at a bakery and have old-fashioned cupcakes. And I was just like, what does that mean? What's an old-fashioned cupcake? Well, they meant made from scratch. And I'm like, is there any other way to make a cupcake? I was like shocked by this. And so you're right. When somebody says that they made a homemade cake, they're talking about a box cake. We never use box cakes at our house. Tell us how to make this one, quick.
So this one just has some simple ingredients. You're going to use some type of fat. You can use butter or shortening or lard. Whatever your preferred fat is, please do not use plastic. I mean margarine.
Oops.
Don't use margarine.
We'll talk about what margarine really is in a later podcast.
Then you're going to use some sugar, some eggs, vanilla, and some sour milk, 2 teaspoons of soda. That's your leavening agent. Some flour, salt, cocoa, oil, and hot water. That's it.
And guess what? If you do not have sour milk in your house, like we do at our house on occasion or weekly, you can sour your milk by adding a teaspoon of vinegar to a cup of regular milk, right?
Or even lemon juice. Any acid you can add.
Absolutely. Just let it set and watch it curdle. It's fun. It's kind of like a science experiment. If I were to do this recipe and I had never baked a cake before, what could I do to mess this up?
The little tricky one in this is the sour milk. If you are using sweet milk, which is your regular bottled milk, just use, use a fluid measurement. So the glass measuring cup, fill it to about a cup, and then add a teaspoon or 2 of vinegar or lemon juice. And like Sue said, watch it curdle. That's about the most difficult part of this recipe.
So, do you measure everything carefully when you bake a cake?
I am not known for my measuring prowess. However, I don't do my little by guess or by golly with leavening agents. So with soda, I'll measure off exactly the 2 teaspoons, but like with 6 tablespoons of cocoa, there happens to be a little extra on those tablespoons. Oh, well, a little extra chocolate never hurt anybody.
Never. Only reason I ask is because there happens to be a different measuring cup that you use for your milk than you would for your flour. Am I wrong in that?
Nope, there's a dry measuring cup for dry ingredients like flour and sugar and salt. And then there's a wet measuring, which is like the glass Pyrex, and it's got like the red or blue.
So if it had a pour spout on it, maybe that would be the key.
That's your clue.
That would be the clue.
That's your clue.
What you would use to measure out cake recipe. How about sifting? One time I did an interview with somebody, and they said that that's the one thing that they tell everybody to do: sift all of their dry ingredients together. And so that's one of the things that I've started doing. Do you sift?
I don't sift. Did you see a difference when you started sifting?
I'm not sure. I think that sometimes I didn't ever run into a pocket of soda when I was eating something, but I just started doing it and I don't know why.
I think if you were doing like a muffin or a scone or a biscuit where you didn't want to overmix, sifting would be important. But like for a cake mix, you want it well mixed anyway.
Right, and you can beat the crap out of it by hand, or you can be smart and use your electric mixer on this one, right?
Right. So
What-
I don't think sifting would make a difference in a cake.
Well, what kind of pan do you use for a cake that you
This
make from
one-
scratch?
Well, this one's versatile, Sue. You can use 9x13, make your standard cake. You can use 2 8 or 9-inch rounds. Or my mom would have to bring bars for funerals and sporting events and whatever else when we were growing up. And she would make this cake recipe, pour it into a cookie sheet pan, sprinkle chocolate chips over the top, and instant pan of bars.
Oh, yummy. Good idea. Everybody needs bars for after school, right?
Exactly.
I love it. And guess what? Here's my little tip of the day. Don't go out and buy yourself a cake pan if you don't have one. Go to your local thrift store and hunt around. I found some of the best utensils, pans, sifters, French fry cutters, things like that at thrift stores.
I think you get the best stuff at thrift stores.
I know that we both
Because
agree on that.
usually it comes from grandma's kitchen and the grandkids don't know what it is, so they just send it to the thrift store. You say, oh, a mandolin slicer for $2.
I love it. I bought a mandolin slicer last year, but I also don't wash my baking pans very good because I think that when they aren't shiny, is that correct? When they aren't shiny, they bake better, don't they?
Oh, I completely agree. And you want that patina on there.
Because that kind of transfers into more even heat, I think, in your oven. Do you have a favorite memory about this chocolate cake recipe?
Well, my sister and I eat this chocolate cake recipe with butter on it.
Huh.
So a cold piece of cake and put butter on top, and that's our favorite way to eat it. And every time someone sees us eating chocolate cake with butter on it, they give us this funny look. And we're like, have you tried it? Well, no. Then don't complain.
What about pickles? Buttered chocolate cake and pickles?
No pickles.
If you didn't catch the recipe and you want to try the Sharon White not box cake chocolate cake recipe, the entire recipe can be found in the show notes on our website at farmsnews.com. And we'll be back next Friday with another installment of the Farms Friday Food File Podcast.
Until then, get cooking.
Rock on!